Okay, let's start. Good evening, dear ladies, righteous ladies, good evening. I would like to say, Bezrat Hashem, a blessing, שיגיע משיח צדקנו במהרה בימינו, amen, as we have the lesson. שהמבשר יגיע אליהו הנביא, אליהו תשבי, אליהו גלעדי במהרה יבוא משיח בן דוד, amen, אליהו הנביא זכור לטוב. Today we're going to speak about the 10 plagues. We're going to say all the midrashim, the pardes about, we'll try most of them, about the 10 plagues. This Shabbat we have Parashat Bo. This is the Parashat this Shabbat. The ending of the plagues, and the children of Israel are going out of Egypt on this parasha. I would like to tell you something. Chodesh Shvat, we're in Chodesh Shvat. We started Chodesh Shvat on Shabbat, last Shabbat. And I would like to tell you, Shvat stands for שנתבשר בשורות טובות. With God's help, may God, Bezrat Hashem, let us hear good news. As Bezrat Hashem, באמת שהגיע המשיח צדקנו במהרה בימינו, אמן. This is חודש שבט, שנתבשר בשורות טובות. I would like to tell you the 10 plagues. Let's concentrate. The 10 plagues, I wrote them over here. You see over here? They stand for Datzach, Adash, Va'achav. Those are the 10 plagues. They were written on the stick that Moshe Rabbeinu had in his hand. We're going to speak about the mateh. All of them were written like this on the mateh, on the stick that he had in his hand. I would like to tell you, if you look over here, you'll see that I divided the plagues. You can't see? Okay, I divided the plagues like this to 3 plagues, and over here 4. But I would like to divide it to 3 groups of 3 over here. I would like to tell you, every 2 plagues out of the groups over here, every 2 plagues out of the group of 3 plagues, Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron came to Paro and to the Egyptian people, and they warned them about the plagues. But the 3rd one they did not warn. Every 2 plagues there was a warning, and the 3rd one there wasn't any warning. We're going to explain all the plagues. And over here again, those 2 plagues, Barad, which is hail, Be'arbe, which is grasshoppers, they were warned, and then Choshech, darkness, they were not warned. If you look at the plagues that they were not warned, let's write them over here. Choshech, which is darkness. Then we have Shchin, which is a disease in the skin. And then we have Kinim, which is lice. I'm writing it one beneath the other. Those are the 3 plagues that the children of Israel were not warned about, that the Egyptian people were not warned about. And if you look, they are connected. If I'm looking at this word, this is Choshech. Over here it's Choshech, and over here it's Choshech. This is darkness on this side. And if you look over here, and I'm adding the letters Sh. Let's concentrate. You see over here, I'm adding the letters Chet, Shin, Chaf. This is also Choshech. It's also darkness. And over here you see Shchin. Look over here. This is Shchin. Shchin was the disease in the skin, like leprosy. And over here, what do you see over here? Kinim, lice. Do you see? We have Choshech over here, darkness. Shchin, the disease in skin, like leprosy, and Kinim, lice over here. So darkness we have again. If you look from the top to the end, to the bottom, we see the same thing. They are connected. All the 3 plagues out of the groups. That's why I divided it to groups, to 3 groups. All of the 3 plagues that they were not warned, the Egyptian people, are connected to each other. And they are even connected in the way they are written in the Hebrew language. Now let's start. I'm starting from Parashat Vayera, and I would like to tell you we're going to speak about a lot of stories in Parashat Vayera. And it goes like this. It says, God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, God says, לכן אמור לבני ישראל, אני השם והוצאתי אתכם מתחת סבלות מצרים. And it's written that Hashem is taking the children of Israel out of the suffering of Egypt. But it says, והוצאתי ולקחתי. There are 4 ways of redemption. He says, והוצאתי ולקחתי. והוצאתי ולקחתי. ולא לקחתי. First it's והוצאתי והצלתי וגאלתי ולקחתי. והצלתי וגאלתי ולקחתי. And at the end, I'll explain everything in a minute, והבאתי. That's the end. But there are 4 לשונות גאולה, which 4 ways of redemption. God first says, והוצאתי, I will take you out of Egypt. And then he says, והצלתי, I will save you. And this is very weird. The Midrash says, how come God says, I will take you out of Egypt, and then he says, I will save you. First, God should have said, I would save you. If I will save you, it means that I will take you out of Egypt. I'm going to save you. So the Midrash says, why did he say first, והוצאתי? So I would like to tell you. You know, at the beginning, if you look at Sefer Bereshit, Chumash Bereshit, the book of Bereshit, you'll see Mitzrayim is written like this. When the children of Israel are going Mitzrayim, it's written like this, Mitzrayim. And you'll see there are 2 memim over here, the letter mem in Hebrew. But in the book of Shmot, Exodus, in the book, this Chumash Shmot, you'll see Mitzrayim is like this. It's not written by the word Mitzrayim, but it goes by the word Mitzrayim. We have mem and 2 mems over here. But look what the difference. When we look at Egypt, Mitzrayim, in the book of Bereshit, in the book of beginning, you can see that the both memim over here are open memim. The letters are opened. And look at Egypt over here, in this book of Shmot, 1 mem is open, 1 letter is open, this is the open one, and this is closed. You see, it's closed from all sides. And what does it mean? It means, it means that you remember that Avraham Avinu went to Mitzrayim, and you remember what happened. He went out of Mitzrayim. Also Yitzchak. And what happened is, you can see over here that because the 2 memim is opened over here, it's called Mitzrayim, it means that they could have gone to Mitzrayim, to Egypt, and then they could go out of Egypt. In and out. But now, over here, Mitzrayim, in the book of Shmot, you can see that they can go into Mitzrayim, they can go to Egypt, but they cannot go out of Egypt. If I say Mitzrayim, I mean Egypt, okay? I'm accustomed to say it in Hebrew as I say Mitzrayim, but Mitzrayim means Egypt. So you can go into Egypt, but you cannot go out of Egypt. And the question is why? It says in the Midrash that 10 קבין של כשפים ירדו לעולם, 9 לקחה מצרים ואחד כל העולם. It means that 10 different kinds of magic came to this world. 9 of them took Egypt and 1 the whole world. Which means there were big magicians. The Khartoumim were big magicians. They knew what to do with demons. They knew what to do. And because of that, they used to make people come to Egypt. They used to be nice to them. Once the people came to Egypt, they could not go out of Egypt. Why? Egypt you remember that I told you there were 10 gates of entrance to Egypt. It was also an exit, but nobody can go out. Why? Because on each gate, except for when we spoke about Bereshit, the Yosef generations, then they could go out. But after Yosef, we can see that anyone that came in to Egypt, he became a slave. And he couldn't go out of the gates. Each gate had a magic animal on it. It was like a dmut, like a figure of an animal that was on the gate. There were dogs. 1 gate was a dog, 1 gate was a camel, 1 gate was a lion. There were figures on it. 1 gate was a fox. And what will happen if a slave wanted to run away, he would run through one of the gates, then that animal will start shouting and screaming. And once that animal was screaming, everybody knew through which gate he went out, and they will go after him, and all the animals will start screaming with her. So nobody could go out of Egypt. That's why in this book of Shmot, the Mitzrayim is written like this. Egypt is written with an open mem, which means that you can go into Mitzrayim, but you did not go out. There's no exit. That's why the children of Israel did not believe that anyone can leave the land of Egypt. They could not believe it. So God wanted them to know, I will take you out of the land of Egypt. First of all, I would like you to know, this is not an obstacle for me. You're going to go out, and I'm going to open the gates for you. And you know through what gate they went out? The gate of the dogs. That's why it's written, "Velo yachrotz kelev leshono," which means that's why even the dogs did not bark. They went through the gate, and you know how dogs bark, especially at night, in the morning, you know how they bark. The dog did not bark. And that's why he says first, V'otzeti v'itzan, I will save you, I will give you redemption, and I will take you, Belakachti. God is promising us, I'm going to take you as my slaves. You're going to be my people. You're going to be, Baruch Hashem, we are the slaves of the King, of Melech Malchei Malachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We are the slaves. He's taking us as His slaves. And then He says, Ve'eveti otchem, and I'm going to bring you to the land of Israel, which is the Holy Land, the Promised Land. So God in Parashat Vayera is promising two things to the children of Israel. You are going to be my people. You're going to be my oldest sons, the firstborns you're going to be mine. And you're going to also receive a present from me, the land of Israel. So we can see also the Shnot Gula. And then he says this, I want you to pay attention, he says, "V'otzeti etchem mitachat sivlot Mitzrayim." Mitachat sivlot, v'otzeti etchem mitachat sivlot, which means the suffering of Egypt. The Midrash says it's not the suffering. You see, we are in exile. Even when we were spread all over the world, in Yemen, in Russia, it doesn't matter where we were. God says, I will cause you not to have any patience for this exile anymore. Because once we still have patience for the exile, we are in exile. Why do we need to ask Mashiach now, all the time? Because we need to show Hashem that we don't want to be anymore in exile. It's not that we are feeling comfortable. We have food, we have everything that we need in order to support ourselves. So we feel comfortable in this exile. We need not to have any patience for the exile anymore. We need to ask God, please save us. That's enough. We had enough. We want to go back to the land of Israel. Once we will do that, all of us, Bezrat Hashem, that's it. That's the meaning of Sivlot, mitachat sablanut, that we won't have any patience. We won't have any patience for this exile, like they did not have any patience anymore to the exile of Egypt. They couldn't bear it anymore. So God is telling them, I'm going to make you, I'm going to help you, that you won't have any more patience for this exile. And then the plagues start. Let's
number 3, number 4, what you said, yeah. What was it?
Begalti, and redeem you.
Redeem. And the fourth one?
Velakachti, I will take you. Ve'eveti, I will bring you. I will take you as my people, and Ve'eveti, I'm going to take you to the land of Israel. Okay, let's continue. Okay. I made a line for me. I would like to show you something. We are continuing Parashat Vayera. In a few minutes we are going to go to the plagues. I would like to prepare you for the plagues. It says like this. It says, לך אל פרעה בבוקר, הנה יוצא המימה וניצבת לקראתו על שפת היאור והמטה אשר נהפך לנחש תיקח בידך. He says, go to Paro in the morning, early in the morning, when the sun rises. Go to him, and the stick that I gave you, the mateh, the stick that you have in your hand, take with you. The stick that turned into snake. And you can see, and the question is, why did he tell him to go in the morning? What was important in the morning? I would like to tell you that Paro said that he is a God. He said he created himself. Nobody created him. He created himself. He doesn't need to go to the toilet. He doesn't need to do anything that human beings have to do. So what did he do? There was a law in Egypt that no one is allowed to go out as the sun rises out of their houses. They are not allowed. That was a law from the king, a decree from the king. So he used to go in the morning to the Nile, and over there he did anything, all the things that he needed to do. Over there he did everything. But nobody saw him because he said that he's a god. Nobody saw him. There was a law, and everyone was afraid of him. They were not allowed to go out of the houses early in the morning. Then he did whatever he needed to do as a human being, and he continued to be a god after that. And it says that's why God tells him, go to him early in the morning so you will see him, that he will know that you know that he's a human being and not a god, like he makes himself a god. And then it says, Moshe Rabbeinu comes to him and says,
we have to go to see the God. I want to see him.
he's not here anymore. And then you can see, Moshe Rabbeinu says, Shalach et ami vayavduni. Moshe tells him, God of the Hebrews sent me, and he says, let my people go. And I would like to show you something. When he says, let my people go, there's a big secret in it. If you look at the word shalach, which means let my people go, shalach, you remember that we did I think it was last lesson, we did chilufei otiyot, we exchanged letters. From Aleph, the first letter of the Hebrew word, with Taf, the last letter of the Hebrew word, and then Bet with Shin, the second letter of the Hebrew word, and the last letter from the end of the Hebrew word Shin, and then Gimel and Reish. And if you look over here, if I'll take those letters and I'll continue it, you will have the word Svach. Svach means bushes. You remember what happened with Avraham Avinu and Akedat Yitzchak? You remember that Avraham Avinu took his son to sacrifice his son to Hashem, and what happened? God told him, he sent an angel to tell him, don't do that. Avraham, vayomer hineni. He says, don't do that. And then he sees Ayil. He sees a deer that his corn is stuck in the bushes. So this is the svach that Avraham Avinu saw the Ayil. And if you look at Svach, and let's look at the letters after those letters in the Hebrew Aleph Bet Samech. After Samech comes, who knows, Ayin, and after Bet comes Gimel, and after Chaf comes Lamed. What do you have? Egel. You know who did the sin with the Egel? Who did the sin with the Egel? With the cloth? Who did the sin? The children of Israel, once they went out of Egypt and they were waiting for Moshe Rabbeinu. So look what a hint. He knows, I'm going to show you a few things during the plagues. Look over here. He says, Shalach et ami. And by the word Shalach, we know that they have the merit of Abraham Avinu and Yitzchak and Yaakov. They have the merit of the three of them. And then we know by a hint that they are going to sin when they are going to go out of Egypt and they are going to receive the Torah. B'ma'amad Har Sinai, on Har Sinai, they are going to sin with the Egel. Everything here, I'm going to give you a few things from the Midrash from here. And then it's written, כה אמר השם, בזאת תדע כי אני השם, הנה אנוכי מכה במטה אשר בידי על המים. We are going to the first plague, which is blood. But he says like this, הנה אנוכי מכה במטה אשר בידי. I'm going to write it over here. המטה אשר בידי על המים. He says, I'm going to take the stick that I have in my hand and I'm going to hit the water, to strike the water. And I would like to show you something. He writes, in my hand, הנה אנוכי מכה במטה אשר בידי על המים. Please pay attention. I can say the sentence without those two words. הנה אנוכי מכה במטה על המים. Isn't that enough? I'm taking the stick and I'm going to hit the stick on the water. Strike the water with a stick. So do I need those words asher beyadi? Lichora, it's very weird. Why are those words here? And you know that the Midrash, the Mikra, that our Holy Torah doesn't write anything that we don't need. So why did Hashem say asher beyadi? In my hand. It means I'm going to take I'm going to strike the water with a stick in my hand, the water for the first plague. And why is it written beyadi? So I would like to show you something. The stick that Moshe Rabbeinu had, you know when it was created? On the 6th day before Shabbat it was created. Bereshit, Ben Hashmashot it was created. One of the 10 things that were created was the stick that Moshe Rabbeinu used. And that stick went through generations. It went out, I'll tell you exactly to whom. It started with Adam HaRishon. Adam HaRishon had the stick in his hand, and then it went from Adam HaRishon to Chanoch. From Chanoch it went to Shem. From Shem Shem was the son of Noach. From Shem it went to Avraham Avinu. From Avraham Avinu it went to Yitzchak. From Yitzchak it went to Yaakov. From Yaakov it went to Yosef. From Yosef it went. Yosef passed away in Egypt. Paro took the stick. Yitro, which was in his palace, stole the stick. You remember he ran away from Paro. He stole the stick and he put it. He stuck it in his garden, in the ground in his garden. Nobody could take out that stick from there. That was the stick. It was the weight of that. The weight of the stick was 40 seah. It was very heavy. It was out of sapphire. It was from sapphire, the stick. And on the stick were written the 3 names of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the 6 names of the mothers, which are Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, Bilhah, and Zilpah. 6 names of all the mothers. The 12 tribes were written on it. And the name of God was written on it. And it was written from up to down. It was like this. Yud, Kuf, Vav, Kuf. Like this it was written. This is the name. When it's written and you read it from top to bottom, it is the name of mercy. Zeh Chesed. It's the name of mercy. But if Moshe Rabbeinu needs to have judgment on Mitzrayim, he needs the name of judgment. So in order to have the name of judgment, he has to hold the stick from the bottom of the stick. Exactly. This is the name of judgment. When when the name of God doesn't start from the top, but from the end of the name to the top, this is the name of judgment. That's why he told him, Asher Be'adi, he told him, don't hold the stick upwards, from the head of the stick. Hold it from the bottom. That's why he used Be'adi. Hold it from the bottom, and then you'll have judgment. This is my name of judgment. That's why it's written Asher Be'adi, which is in my hand. The name of God was written from top to bottom on the stick, okay? One letter after the other. But if he holds the stick from the bottom, the name of God is upside down, which means it starts like this, Kuf, Vav, Kuf, Yud. This is the name of judgment.
But still, what does it mean, Asher Be'yadi?
In my hand, he tells Asher Be'yadi, otherwise he shouldn't have told him. He says Asher Be'yadi, not the part that you hold, that usually is in your hand, the head of the stick. You understand the chelek ha'elyon shel hamate. You have to hold it from the bottom. That's why he says Asher Be'yadi. Take your hand and go to the bottom. That's why he used. Otherwise, you don't need Be'yadi. It's like, for example, in the Torah you will see every time that we use our right hand, it's not mentioned. It's written Yamini, right, but the hand is not mentioned. But every time that it's the left hand, Katuv Yadi. That's why it's written. So what you see over here, that he's telling him to hold the stick from the other side, then you'll have judgment. Then you have the name of judgment, because he needs the plague. He has it on the stick, because on the stick also the names of the plagues are there. But he needs the name of God for judgment in order to make the plagues. So God tells him, Asher Be'adi, take the stick from the bottom and hold it and then use it. So he takes the stick, and the first plague is blood. And what happens? Who does the first makkah, the first plague? Aaron. Moshe tells him, you will hold the stick and you're going to strike the water. And I'll explain why. And Aaron does it. So we can see that Aaron takes, and all of the waters of Egypt become blood. Everything they drink, even in the pots, everything they have is all blood. Everything they have in the bathroom, everywhere they went, everything is blood. Everything they drank is blood. Only the Jewish people, Ivrim, that were in Goshen, they had water, pure water. So I would like to tell you, for example, what happened. If a Jewish person started to drink water, the Egyptian came to him and said, please, let me drink from your water. So he said, okay, take my cup. He took his cup and he was drinking blood. But then he said, you know what, let's drink together from the same cup. So, they squeezed themselves, they were drinking together. The Egyptian was drinking blood and the Jewish person was drinking pure water. And then they said, what shall we do? We don't know what to do. So they offered money. The children of Israel became so rich from this plague, because only when the Egyptians paid money for the water, they could drink water. So it means that they became very rich from this plague. And then, listen very carefully. Yes, they became rich. I would like to tell you, you can see...
Why they came out of there with a lot of gold and...
With a lot, that's part of it. They gained a lot of money. This plague, they had a lot of money, jewelry. They gave him, instead of to drink water, they didn't have water. And I would like to tell you that the fish in the Nile, all of the fish died. And the Nile was smelling, nobody can come... Nobody could smell the smell that came out of it. And Vayiva Shayor, which means, nobody asked me the question, why did the fish die? What did they do wrong? Because you remember the flood? You remember then over there God did not kill the fish. Only over here in this plague that fish were killed. And the question is why? Because in the times of the flood, what happened over there is only that the people sinned. They sinned with Gilui Arayot, which means they had intimacy that they didn't need, that they were not supposed to have, and they stole from each other. And the fish did not do anything wrong. But over here, you remember that Paro threw the children to the Nile, the Jewish children, all the males, all the Jewish males, the children to the Nile. So he threw them to the Nile. What did the fishes do? They ate them. The fish took bites of them. And God said, you dare touch my, even though they deserve to die, those children, you dare to touch my children, then you're going to die. He killed all of the fish in the Nile. And the smell was so bad, nobody can come near the Nile. And of course, Paro, all the witchcraft and all his Khartoumim, all his magicians showed him that they can do also, it's Achizat Enaim. What they do, magic, is only Achizat Enaim. It's things that you think optically that you are seeing. It's an illusion, but it's not true, yes.
But they give me a sechel.
They have. זה לא שיש להם שכל. It's not that they don't have a brain. They know Hashem. Frogs. Look at the frogs. The frogs, you'll see now the next plague is the frog. And part of it you'll see that they jumped into the ovens. And they jumped only because they wanted to do Kiddush Hashem. They wanted to sacrifice themselves for God. And they are frogs. So if frogs and the fishes that we consider them and God punishes them, midah keneged midah, measure for measure, al achat kama v'chama anashim, which means us as human beings, we are more open to sins, God forbid, and to punishments than they are, because we have all the commandments that we need to follow. And no, I agree with you that they don't have de'ah, but still they did something against what God wanted them to do. They are not allowed, animals are not allowed to touch people. That's from the beginning. They are not allowed to touch people. And an animal that eats a person, she's dead. So I would like to continue. The next plague was Tzfardeim, frogs. And it's written over here that God is commanding him. It's written כך, הנה אנוכי נוגף את כל גבולך בצפרדעים. I am going to put in all of your borders, in all of Egypt, and I would like to tell you all of Egypt is going to be with frogs. But look what happens. Please pay attention. Vayet Aaron, again Aaron takes his mateh, and he puts his mateh on the rivers of the Nile. Vatal hatzfardea, and then one frog. It's written Vatal. It's not written in the Mikra that frogs are coming out of the Nile. Only one frog is coming out of the Nile. Vatal hatzfardea. And the question is very weird because God said that they're going to be tzfardeim, a lot of frogs. How come the Mikra is writing Vatal hatzfardea? Rabbi Akiva Zchuto Taged Alenu says Vatal hatzfardea means that a big frog went out of the Nile. Big frog. And the Egyptians saw the frog, they took sticks and they started hitting the frog. They hit the frog, and with every strike that they strike the frog, there were small frogs going out of her mouth. She split a lot of frogs. And they became angrier. And they continued to hit her. And more frogs went out. More and more and more. And the frogs spread all over. And you know, it's only logical that the people are going to close their houses, so they can't come into the house. But it says the frogs went into the houses. It says that the frogs went under, you know, underneath to the waters that are underneath in the wells, and they went inside into the houses by the floor. They opened the floor, they pushed the floor, the bricks of the floor, and they went into the house. They went into the beds, into the bedrooms. Everywhere there were frogs. In their drinks, once they drank also small frogs. Small frogs. The frogs used to go into their stomachs, into their stomachs, and they started speaking to each other. In the stomachs. They could not hear each other. It was so loud. It was so loud they could not speak to each other. They became sick.
This frog and water drinking the Egyptian people.
Yes, only the Egyptians. And you know, this made peace. This kind of plague made peace between Egypt and other countries around it. Because, for example, Egypt had a quarrel, a fight with a country that was called Kush. And they were fighting over the borders. They did not agree about the borders. They did not know where the Egyptian border is and the Kush border is. But once God brought the plague of frogs, it's written, only begvulcha, only in your borders. Everybody knew where the borders of Egypt was. Because the frogs were only in the borders of Egypt. So it made peace. Also the grasshoppers. It was only in the borders of Egypt. So it made peace between the nations and Egypt. They knew exactly where the borders are. And you can see that it says that the frogs went into their stomach, into the body, and they ate the frogs. Because if the Egyptian women baked, for example, a cake, or they baked, for example, bread, they put it in the oven, the frogs would jump into the oven. Once they jumped into the oven, they went into the dough. And God said, look what Kiddush Hashem they did. They were willing to sacrifice themselves for God. Because all the creatures know where they come from. You know, a part of us, a part of the human beings, you know, there are 4 reincarnations. Yes, reincarnation of Medaber, so Chai, I'll write it over here.
In English, you say?
Yeah, no. Medaber, Chai, Someach, Vedomem. Which means, Medaber is human beings that speak. Chai is living things, animals. Someach are plants. And Domem are things that do not move, like tables. This is Domem, ground. Everything that does not move. And is not a plant and not a living thing. That's Domem. So reincarnation can be in 4 ways. So you know, sometimes the soul has a reincarnation, God forbid, in one of them. It can be an animal.
It's a punishment.
It's a punishment. It can be an animal, it can be in plants, and it can be in domem. One of the things, for example, in domem, we have the Chazal say, our sages say, Kirot betecha ya'idu alecha. It means that the walls of your house are going to give testimony over you, what you did in your house. This is a reincarnation. I'll just say that again. This is a reincarnation of a person who slanders other people. A person that has the sin of slander, that speaks badly about other people, has a reincarnation in the walls of the house of people. Then his soul goes over there, and his punishment is to hear the slander in that house. And then to go back to Hashem when the people in that house pass away, to go back to Hashem and give testimony what happened over there. That's his punishment. That's in domain. And the most cruel punishment is to be in a stone. You know what happens until the soul goes out? Because the stone needs water and wind in order that until the stone won't be there. You know, because the water and wind makes it smaller and smaller by time. So,
It takes centuries.
Yes. Takes centuries. That's the worst gilgul that can be. The worst reincarnation. These are the 4 which is Medaber is human beings. Human beings. It's Medaber because they speak. They have the ability to speak to each other. The speech. Chai means animals. Tzomeach means plants. And domem are the things that do not move. So let's continue with the frogs. Now that we know about the frogs, Paro could not hear himself. It says in the Midrash that Paro used to do, Paro did not care what happened to his people. And the Paro before him, you remember that he took Sarai Menush, which was a beautiful woman. Nobody saw such beauty like Sarai Menush. And he took her to his palace, and then he gave her back to Avraham Avinu. But then when she went, he couldn't bear himself. He wanted to see her dmut, her figure. So what did he do? Like Mozeano Shava that we have over here, he did a dmut, a figure of her, and he put her on the wall, that figure. And he used to look at the figure, all the Paronim used to look at the figure on the wall, and they would forget from all the world, because she was so beautiful. So God didn't want him to enjoy the figure of Sarai Menu. So he put the frogs in his bedroom everywhere. And he couldn't even think. He had to think about the sorrow of his people. He couldn't think. He couldn't concentrate on the dmut, on the image of Sarai Menu. So God didn't. So he called Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron and he said, "Please take this plague from me." So it says that Moshe Rabbeinu shouted to Hashem. We don't see that in any other plagues. Only over here shouted to Hashem. Why did he need to shout? Because it says that the voices of the frogs were so loud nobody could hear anything. And it says that when a person prays, from here we know how to pray. When a person prays and he prays to Hashem, he needs to hear himself. Yes. Even belachash, you hear yourself. Even when you say Tehillim, you need to hear yourself. You need to listen. Why? Because then you take out the words, and the words are very important. Every letter in the Hebrew alphabet, in the holy language, is important because every letter is an angel. So once you hear that, you're creating the angel. Yes, please.
I have a very small question, but I'm just curious. Someone told me the Jewish family could not have any statues of the people or the animals in a house. That's true or not?
Yes, you're not allowed to have statues.
It's like any statues?
No statues.
Not a big, not small.
No.
So
we have 10 plagues only in the second, so let's continue. We're going to the third plague, which is called kinim, lice. The third plague, the group of the three over here, the last one, which they were not, he did not go and tell them about the plague, was kinim, lice. And it says that he told again Aaron, 3 plagues by Aaron, to take the stick and to put it on the ground and to hit the ground so there will be lice all over. And you know what? It wasn't only lice on the head, it was lice all over the body. It was lice in the animals. Animals had lice. The lice was on the ground. You could not see the earth. Nobody could see the earth. They couldn't stand on the earth because everything was like a thick measure of lice over there. Like this, there was lice on the earth. They could not walk on the ground because everything was lice. They couldn't bear themselves. They couldn't even itch. It was itching, but they couldn't help even themselves. It says that part of the lice, there's like 14 kinds of lice, and they had all the kinds of lice. Some of them were big as eggs. You know, lice is so small you can't even see. You can barely see it. And some of the lices were the size of eggs. Some of them the size of eggs of a duck. So it was bigger even than a normal egg that we used to know. Yes, it was like cockroaches. Some of them were big lices, and they had a big problem. So he tells now his Khartoumim, his magicians, please do the same thing, but they can't do it. They tell him we can't do it, and they tell him Etzba Elokim. They say it's the finger of God. We can't do it. They say Etzba Elokim. Etzba Elokim. And Etzba means, Etzba is finger. The finger of God, they say. It's the finger of God. We can do that. The Zohar Kadosh says about it. They saw there's a star that is called, a kochav that is called Yad, which means hand. A hand. There's a kochav, there's a star that is called Yad. When that star is above in the sky, when you can see that star, no magician can do any magic. So they saw it. They saw the hand because the Yad, the hand, has 5 fingers. They saw that the finger of the hand. So they said, Etzba Elokim. This is from God. We can't do anything. It's the finger.
When we're reading Torah, we're showing following with the finger. There is any connection to that, why we are showing the finger when we are
The finger, yes, there is connection, because the finger means that this is the hand of God that is doing it. And when we take the finger and following, we are showing that this is what God gave us. We are showing that this is what God gave us. So let's continue. It says etzba. What do I mean when I say finger? Aleph goes in. Sorech. It means every letter in the word etzba. Every letter in the word etzba means something. אין צריך בדיקה עוד. אין צריך בדיקה עוד, which means we do not check anything anymore. We do not need to check anything. This is the finger of God. This is the hand of God that is doing the plagues. It's not the hand of a human being. It's not an illusion. It's the hand of God that does the magic over here. That does all the plagues that we have. Etzba Elokim, אין צריך בדיקה עוד, which means we don't need to check anything. אין צריך בדיקה עוד, we do not need to check anything anymore. We know it's the hand of God. And you can see, I would like to tell you something. It says, Chazal, our sages say that in order to do magic, to do something that is an illusion, the legs of the person that does it, the magician himself, has to be on the ground. It has to be on earth. It has to be on the ground. But over here I told you there was a thick layer of lights on the ground, so they couldn't even stand on the ground, so they couldn't do anything. And more than that, in order to do magic, they can even use demon, but they can't do something smaller than seorah, than barley, than the size of a barley. They can't do something smaller than that. No demon can do that. Can make an illusion of something smaller than a barley. So they cannot do anything, and we are going from that to the next plague.
But the Chachamim, they knew that there is a God.
Now they knew that there is a God. They are saying etzba Elokim. It has to be their God that is doing it. Don't worry, after 10 plagues they understand that there has to be a God.
This God is much powerful.
When the sun is there, right?
10. Let's continue to the next plague. Etzba Elokim, and then we are continuing. It says that Moshe Rabbeinu comes. Oh, I didn't speak about it. I told you that the 3 first plagues were by the hand of Aaron. I wanted to tell you a story. Maybe I'll give you a midrash over here. There's a story about a Chacham that it came to his knowledge that there were in Ashkelon, it's a city in Israel, there were 80 women like witches, but Jewish witches. And you know, Mechashefa dina lamut, which means that Jewish witch, yes. Yes, and yes, it's a true thing. I'm telling you from the Chazal, the stories of Chazal. And it said it's 80 witches, women witches. And the Chacham, and you know that the law is that if there's a woman, any witch, you have to burn, you have to kill, you have to hang it. Arba mitot bedin. Which means they had to kill them. Arba mitot bedin. And it says like this, that the Chacham thought what to do with them. So he took 80 men, strong men, Jewish men. 80. He took 80 men, and he told them, take your talit and put your talit in a special box, closed box, because on that day it was raining. The rain was so hard, you couldn't move. You know, sometimes when it's like showers. You know, the rain that it's like showers. So he went to the witches, and once he went to Once he went to the witches, he told them, you know, I'm a big magician, and I can do the biggest magic that you never saw in your whole life. So the witches said, what can you do? Can you tell us what you can? He says, you know what? You are 80 women over here. I can bring 80 men, strong men over here, and they will carry you up in their arms. So they said, can you? He said, of course, I'm a big magician. I'm going to do it for you. Because I told you, one of the things, they can't do magic if their feet are not on the ground. So he called the men that were outside.
Witches cannot do anything when they are not on the ground?
Yes, if their feet are not on the ground. So he called them in, and he told them, put your talitot, and you know the talit was dry, and he said, you'll see, it's a big magic, because you see the showers of rain that are outside, you'll see that they will be dry. There won't be a drop of water on them. So they went, they took the talit, they put the talit on, the talit was dry. So when they saw that everything was dry, they went in, they saw them, really, it's 80 men, strong men. Each one of them took one of the witches and held her in his hand, and he hanged them. The Chacham hanged each one of the witches because they couldn't do anything, because their feet was not on the ground. They couldn't do anything to help themselves, and he hanged them. This is part of Midrashei Chazal. And let's continue now to the next plague. The next plague is about Arov, wild animals. Moshe Rabbeinu tells him, again I didn't say what I wanted to say at the beginning. I told you that the 3 plagues are by Aaron. Aaron is the one that takes the stick and hits the Nile, and then also the ground. And the question is, why did not Moshe do that?
Because now it's safe.
What is the reason that Moshe Rabbeinu did not do that?
Later on, he's going to need the water.
Wait, I'll answer. Let me give you the answer now. I would like to tell you, you remember what the water did for Moshe Rabbeinu? The water saved Moshe Rabbeinu. You remember when Moshe Rabbeinu was 3 months old? So his mother took him and put him in the teva, in the basket. Where did she put the basket? On the Nile. So the water saved Moshe Rabbeinu. So God said, listen, this is how we know, how we learn how to have gratitude for things, for favors that God gives us, and also other human beings. Plants, animals, it doesn't matter. The favors that we get in this world, we need to appreciate. If God tells Moshe Rabbeinu, you cannot touch the water, it's written in Masechet Chulin, you cannot touch the water saved you. You have to ask Aaron to touch the water. You can't do that because you have to have gratitude towards the water. And the ground, what happened with the earth? You remember with the Egyptian which strike Datan, that he wanted to kill Datan? Shh. The Egyptian wanted to kill Datan. They're translating to help them understand. So the Egyptian that wanted to kill Datan, you remember the story that I told you about Datan, that the Egyptian was one of the supervisors. He went to his wife, Shulamit Mishevet Dan, Bat Dibri Mishevet Dan. He went to his wife, he was intimate with his wife. Then he went to kill her husband, Datan. And Moshe Rabbeinu saw that, he saw the Egyptian, and he killed the Egyptian by saying the name of God, Shem Hashem Meforash. And what did the earth do? It covered the Egyptian in order to save Moshe Rabbeinu. So God told him, you can't hit the earth with a stick because this earth helped you. It covered what you did to the Egyptian. In order to have gratitude to the earth, you cannot do it. You can tell Aaron to do that. So that's what he did. And it's written, כל המעשה את חברו לדבר מצווה כאילו עשה בעצמו. He who makes his friend do a mitzvah. For example, if you bring a friend with you to Shul Torah, this is a big mitzvah. So the mitzvah is considered like you did the mitzvah. It means that you have a double mitzvah, your mitzvah and his mitzvah too. So כל המעשה את חברו לדבר מצווה כאילו עשה בעצמו. It's like you did the whole mitzvah. And now we're going to Arov. Arov is wild animals. And look what it says. Wait a minute. And it says like this, "Umal'u batei Mitzrayim et ha'arov," which means that the houses of the Egyptians are going to have wild animals. Vegam ha'adama asher hem alea, and the ground that they're on it. And this is very weird. What do you mean? What does the Mikra mean? The ground that they're on it? And I would like to tell you, this was a miracle inside a miracle. A wild animal, when it goes to a part where human beings live, she gets mixed up. She can't be wild like she's in the forest. So what did Hashem do? He wanted them to be wild. He wanted them to kill the Egyptians. So he took the lions, the bears, all the wild animals, foxes, everything, squirrels. He took them out of the forest, but he brought the forest with them into Egypt. It was a miracle in a miracle, which means the wild animals came to Egypt, but also the forest, the place that they used to live in, came with them. So it was a miracle inside a miracle. I'll give you an example. An example is about, Elisha Navi, the prophet Elisha. Elisha was a student of Eliyahu Navi, Zachur Latov. זכותו תגן עלינו. And Elisha, they asked him, there was מים מרים, sore water. They couldn't drink the water. And they asked him to cure the water, that the water will be sweet, that they can drink the water. So Elisha wanted to cure the water. He went to do that. There were a few young people that came to Elisha, and the young people told Elisha, they told him, why are you doing that? We are earning money from that. We are bringing sweet water, fresh water from other places, and the Jewish people are buying the water from us. So we are earning money from that. Why are you trying to make these water to make this water drinking water? So it says, the Midrash says that Elisha Navi, the prophet Elisha, became so angry. Became so angry that he started cursing those few young people. And once he cursed them, it says in the Midrash, 2 bears went out of the forest, and the forest came with them. It was again a miracle inside the miracle. The forest came with them, and they teared those young people to pieces. That's from Elisha Navi, from the prophet Elisha. They teared them to pieces. What happened over here? Elisha Navi.
Who was the person who tear them?
The bears.
No. למי הם עשו את זה?
To the young people that tried to prevent Elisha, that tried to prevent Elisha from doing what they did. And from doing him what he needed to do to help the people to have drinking water. So now what we see over here, that God is doing a miracle inside a miracle. So you see that all of the Arov, all of the wild animals came into Egypt. And they came with the forests into Egypt. And it says that they went into the houses. And the question is, how did they open the doors? How did they open the windows? The Midrash says something nice. There was in the sea, there's an animal that is called sirena. This animal has long arms. It looks a little bit like a human being. It has a head like a human being, but it's not a human being. And it's deep in the waters of the sea. And it has a hand that is 10 amma, which means 10 amma, the hand, a very long hand. And they went out of the water and they opened the windows, the doors of the Egyptians. And it says in the Mikra over here, yes, it's a real thing. Ken, we do not know all the creatures in the seas today, in the oceans.
But it's the science.
It's called sirenot. Yes, it's written Be'amloez. In the Midrashim, it's written that they went out. Hashem told them to go out of the waters and to open the doors of the Egyptians and the windows so the wild animals can come in. And it says more than that. It says in the Mikra, "V'samti pedut ben ami u'ben amcha," which means every Jewish person that had a sin, instead of him, an Egyptian is going to be dead. Because what happens, our sins are written on our head, over here, forehead, over here. It's on our forehead, our sins are written. Once, God forbid, the angels of cruelty, the angels of, the bad angels, yes, thank you. The bad angels go around, Shalom Edam Etzarot. Once it happens, even if a righteous person goes out, there's no right.
We did not think of it early.
Even a righteous person, King Solomon said there's no righteous person that will do good in the world and won't do a sin. Because we're human beings. So it's written on the forehead of a person. We just can't read it, but it's written on any one of us over here in the room, on our foreheads. So what happens? The angels can read it. The bad angels can read it. And they start, when the bad angels come, they start with the righteous people. Tamid matchil hamashchit shelo neda, with the righteous, with the tzaddikim they start. So it says, that's why it says when there's magefa, don't go out of the house, stay in the house. Magefa, which means when it's spread out, when it's spread out, epidemic, like all bad, yes, like a disease. When bad people when bad angels are outside and they are starting to do what God told them to do, you should not be in the streets. because they read what you have on your forehead. That's why the 10th, the killing of the firstborn was done only by Hashem, because He knows who is the firstborn, and He knew. God said, if I will send angels, Malachei Chabala, bad angels damaging angels to do this work, all of the righteous people, even the Jewish people, are going to be hurt, because they were already in 49 gates of impurity. So they will see it on their forehead. They will kill everyone, including the Jewish people. That's why the last plague was only by Hashem. We'll come to that. We're going to talk about it. Meanwhile, let's finish.
When there's an epidemic, Rasha can walk around with no problems.
Of course he can't. He will be. They will start with a tzaddik, but everybody. It's righteous people and bad people and wicked people. So we can see that the wild animals killed everyone. The Egyptians, and also the Egyptians instead of Jewish people that were supposed to be punished. Then we go after, we can see that Moshe Rabbeinu comes again to Paro, and he tells Paro, listen, please give me 3 days. I'm going to take all of the Jewish people and all of our cattle together, and we'll go and worship our God for 3 days. The question is, there's a weird question. How come Moshe Rabbeinu tells him only 3 days? Instead of telling him we're going to leave Egypt and we're not going to come back. He says only 3 days. God told him to say that because He wanted that all the world to know how cruel was Paro. For even 3 days he won't let the Jewish people come out. And Moshe Rabbeinu did not lie, because he did not say, you'll see the sentences when you'll read it, Bezrat Hashem on Shabbat, he does not say we're going to come back. He says, let us go for 3 days and worship our God. That's it. He doesn't say we're going to come back to Egypt. But he wants all of the nations to know that God is just. He's not punishing Paro just because it's for his own fun, because they are only slaves, because Paro was very wicked. He was a Rasha, a real Rasha Amiti. So we are continuing, and we see over here that Moshe tells him, don't make fun of me. If you're deciding now to let us go out, tell me that now. And then we see that again, Paro's heart is hardened. And we have the next plague, next plague, which is Dever. Dever is sickness in animal, the killing of the death of animals. Dever is a sickness that goes into animals, and because of that they start to die. And a lot of animals that the Egyptian people had died in this plague, but some still stayed for the hail, for the other plagues. So some of them were over here for the hail. And we continue from Dever. We continue from Dever, and we are going to Shchin. Shchin was a plague that is a disease in the body of human beings. It's a disease like leprosy, and it has, it has mugla, it has infection, it had blood and infection in it, and people, they couldn't go out because they were filled with it. They couldn't do it. They couldn't scratch themselves. They couldn't do anything. They were aching. They felt very bad. The shchin was all over. This disease was all over Egypt. Yes, it was all over Egypt. And you'll see that after this plague of shchin, just a minute.
Did each plague stay?
7 days.
7 days, and 30 days between each plague.
Oh, so 30 days between each. Yes.
It says over here,
So 1 week,
10 months for Jewish people to come out of Egypt?
1 year,
1 year?
almost 12 months. I would like to show you.
Can you explain that again?
Yes.
7 days, 7 days in 1 month, everything is okay, then another one? It wasn't like one on top of the other?
No, there was a time that there was a rest, and then again, because they went to speak to Paro, they went back, everything took time. Yes. I would like to tell you something, dear women. When God tells Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron to make the plague of the disease in people, like leprosy, shchin, to make that, he says, take piach vekivshan, which means he took translated it, so I won't have a problem.
Something like a chapter.
Dust of the furnace?
No, coil ashes. Coil ashes they took. That's why I needed they took coil ashes in both of their hands. And then he said to Moshe, take everything that Aaron has in one of your hands. God picked him up to the sky, because that's what he had, only coil ashes in one hand.
What is that?
And he threw it. The coil ashes, he threw it. And then think about all Egypt. God spread all of this coil ashes over all Egypt. And then any human being, any Egyptian that was there had shchin on him, had the disease on him. And every one of the Egyptians had the disease on him. It didn't.
Outside. And what happened with the people who
In the houses, outside the houses, it doesn't matter, because there was a little bit of wind spreading it out through all Egypt. But if you want to know how did they know it has to be in their hand, it's in Hebrew it's piach kivshan, coil ashes, piach kivshan. But you'll look, if you'll take piach kivshan, the letters over here, chet yud and shin nun over here, this is shchin. You see, this is shchin, and this word combines, those letters combines bekaf, which means in your hand you're going to have the disease. This is coil ashes, the translation. But in Hebrew, piach kivshan, if you'll take the letters of both words and you just combine them, you'll see it's bekaf shchin, which means in your hand you're going to have the coil ash, and you're going to throw it, to spread it with your hand. You picked him up, Hashem, very high to the sky, and he just spread it. And Hashem spread it all over Egypt. It was all over the shchin. It's a very bad disease. And then the next disease, the next thing, the next plague was Barad. Barad, just a minute, I'll come to Barad. I would like to tell you, after Barad is hail, it's written that after Shchin, you will see that after this plague, God now makes the heart of Paro harden. Until now it's written, the 5 first plagues, it's written that Paro's heart hardened. He was stubborn. He didn't want to send the children of Israel. Yes. But now God makes his heart harden. He doesn't give him any opportunity to do tshuva. When a person sins too much and continues to do the same sin, and Paro already had the 3 sins that death is on them, there are 3 sins that if you do them, you have a death sentence, which is Avodah Zarah. Avodah Zarah is worshipping a different God. Gilui Arayot is having a wrong intimacy, Gilui Arayot. And then we have Shfichut Damim, killing. Shfichut Damim. He did already all 3 of them. Paro already did all 3 of them. And he continued. He did Avodah Zarah, he worshipped her. He said he's the God. He created himself. He's God.
He was allowed to, no?
Sorry?
He wasn't Jewish. He could have worked it.
No. Everybody is supposed, everybody will know God. Also the non-Jewish people. Because all of them are the children of God. It's not only, we are not only the children of God. All of the human beings all over the world are the children of God. We are his firstborns. We are the chosen people. We were chosen to be his firstborns, like we see in Parashat Shmot. Chori Israel, yes.
The question, if you just insist just to go to the church, it means you're doing the sin?
What?
Okay, if the goy going to the church, it means he's doing.
He is working Avodah Zarah, of course.
Church? If they go into
Of course. Well, any person that worships another God except for God,
If you go into church
That's
to pray, yes, but if you go into
Sorry?
church to look
for us, it's no,
because he doesn't know God yet.
but for himself, it's not.
It doesn't matter. What matters is what God knows. That's what. Yes.
היא שואלת אם נכנסים בפנים, לא מתפללים, רק רואים, זה מותר.
אסור להיכנס לכנסייה. אסור להיכנס. You're not allowed. You're not.
What you're saying is, like going to church, the boy
He doesn't worship the true God. Okay? That's a symbol towards God. That's a symbol towards the true God. Who created this person? The God that we worship, the God of the universe. He is the God. Of course, but they don't know that when Mashiach comes. When Mashiach comes, all the human beings will know that the God is the true God. Do you understand? They do not know. It's like living in darkness. You don't see. Dear women, sometimes there are things in front of you that you don't see. And then after a while, it's like your eyes were open. You said, it was just in front of me. How could I did not see that? How come I did not see that? It's the same thing. Also the non-Jewish people. The God that created all of the universe is the God that we worship, that the Jewish people worship. Be'ezrat Hashem, when Mashiach comes, all the nations will know that God. Because Ayin B'Ayin Yiru B'Shem Hashem B'Tzion. Ayin B'Ayin, every eye will see it. Like when we'll speak about Exodus, when we'll speak about when the children of Israel were standing in front of Yam Suf, of the Sea of Suf, we'll talk about it. Even the servants, the slaves, saw what the Nevi'im, what the prophets did not see. Because they saw God. They saw exactly the התגלמות של הקדוש ברוך הוא בעולם הזה. They saw God in this world. And when Mashiach comes, that's what's going to happen. And all of the human beings are going to serve God. Do you understand? So some of the people now in this world do not see the right way. And לצערי, some of us also do not remember the right way. So we are coming to Shur Torah to remind ourselves what is the right way. The true God is the God of the Hebrews. That's the God that created the world.
When we went into, I personally, and I know a lot of Jewish people, they went like a museum to see the churches. Okay, we didn't know.
נדבר על זה.
Is it sin until now, or
No, if you didn't know, God will. If you didn't know, when a person doesn't know, that's his merit that he didn't know.
No, if we didn't know, and we went
No, that's not allowed. It's not allowed. Okay, we'll speak about it at the end of the lesson. גילוי עריות. Oh, he has a privilege. Why he they gave him it. He said he created himself. So he cannot Of course he did sleep with us, but he said he created himself. He doesn't have the basic needs. He needs to receive from God, but he doesn't have the basic needs of a human being. You understand? He said he didn't have money. He told everybody like Nimrod, remember when Okay, let's continue. We'll speak about it at the end of the lesson. You remember in the era,
that's why talking everybody.
you remember in the era of Nimrod, when Abraham Avinu recognized Hashem in this world? He was the only one that recognized Hashem in this world. Nobody knew that. What did the Nimrod say about himself? He said, I'm God. I created heaven and earth. That's what Nimrod said. The same thing Pharaoh said, I'm God. I created the Niles. I created myself. And people believed him. You'll ask me how? I don't know how they believed him.
He didn't have a mother, father?
No, he said he created himself. It's like Nimrod said the same thing. And everybody believed him, that he is a God.
He lived a long life.
They used to live a long life. Okay, let's continue. Let's continue to the next plague, Barad.
But I have one question.
Yes.
If everybody knows God is one, one is Jesus Christos, Yoshka? Yoshka, как это говорится? Jesus.
Not now. I won't answer questions now. Let me finish. At the end of the lesson, ask me, okay? Okay? Let's continue. The next one, otherwise we won't finish. Let's go to Barad. Okay, now we'll see, we have Barad is hailstorm. And the hailstorm wasn't a regular one. There were blocks of ice. And inside the ice was fire. Fire and water made peace between themselves. Fire and water, usually fire and water don't live together. Okay? If there's fire next to ice, the ice melts. And if there's water next to fire, it extinguishes the fire. So what we see over here, that there were blocks when it fell. God told Moshe Rabbeinu to tell them to take the animals, to put the animals inside the houses, because then they can die, because this was a killing plague. And anyone that was outside died from the plague. Because it was, not Jewish. All the plagues are only for the Egyptian people, not the Jewish people. That was the miracle. Nothing happened to the Jewish people. Only the Egyptians. But I would like to tell you about the plague of Barad. It's written like this. Vayhi Barad ve'esh mitlakechet betoch habarad, which means, you know the lamps that you see, that inside you have a lamp, like a cover, like a glass around it, and inside you can see the light. This is how this barad, this hail was. Blocks of hail. Everywhere was spread. All over it was spread. And it says when Moshe Rabbeinu stopped the blocks of hail, when he came to stop it, some of the blocks of hail was still in the sky, because it was, it was coming down to earth. And there were two parts. One part was saved. It stayed like this in the heaven. It stayed. One part stayed for the days of Yoshua in the book of Judges, when Yoshua needed, and he had a war in order to conquer the land of Israel. This part went down. The Barad. You'll see if you'll read the book of Judges. And the other part, it says, it's when Mashiach comes, and it's the war of Milchemet Gog uMagog. Then that part of Barad will come. That's what's written. So the Barad is still, part of it is still in heaven. It's still up there waiting for its time to come down. And it says Kach. And after the plague of the Barad, let's concentrate. At the end I'll answer questions, okay? So I can finish the plagues. It says after that plague, comes Paro and tells Moshe Rabbeinu, he tells him like this. Hashem, who says, Vayomer Elohim, Chatati apayim, I've sinned this time. Only this time I've sinned. After this plague of Barad, of hail, and this is already the 7th plague. But he says, now I've sinned. I've sinned this time, he says. Hashem HaTzadik, Paro says, I sinned this time, apam, Chatati apam, only this time. Hashem HaTzadik ve'ani ve'ami HaReshaim. Look what he says. It seems like he does tshuva. Look what he says, like he recognizes Hashem. He says Hashem HaTzadik ve'ani ve'ami HaReshaim. It means that God is righteous, and I and my people are wicked. That's what it says over here. Lichora, it seems that, after this plague, the 7th plague over here of hailstorm, it seems that he does tshuva. But the truth is that he was so wicked, he didn't do tshuva. It's a game of words. Look he says, listen, God, your God is righteous, and I am righteous. And I'll put the comma over here. I'm righteous. Hashem HaTzadik ve'ani ve'ami HaReshaim. Only my people are wicked. They slaved the Jewish people, not me. I'm righteous like God, because I'm also a God. Hashem HaTzadik ve'ani. Look. It seems when you read it, he did tshuva. Why did Hashem do 3 more plagues to Paro? He already did tshuva, but it's not. But it's more than that. Now I'm taking the time to explain a part of the Midrash. So please be quiet so we can do it together. Look what he wanted to do. He wanted to separate the name of God. The name of God is Yud K, Vav K. What did he do? What did he say? He said Hashem. We have a Yud over here, so I'm putting this over here. Okay, Hashem. We have a Yud. HaTzadik, a Hey. Yud K Kvar. Then we have the Ami HaReshaim. I have the name of God over here. You see? Yud K Vav K. I have the full name of God. But what did he put in between? His name. V'ani. I am, he says Paro. in between the name of God. Why did he do that? Why did he do this? He did that because he wanted to separate the name of God. Yud K from the name, I'm writing Kuf instead of Hey because then I need to wipe the board. Yud Kuf and then Vav Kuf. I would like to explain to you, when a person has a thought of good deed, to do a mitzvah, he creates part of the name of God. Which part of the name of God? Yud K. This over here, Yud Kuf. This is part of the machshava, the thought. When you have the thought, you create a good thought, you create part of the name of God, it's Yud Kuf. And then when you do the action, you do the deed itself, you go and do that, you create the second part of the name of God, because this is a maaseh. This is the action. So, no, you're thinking, you say, I'm going to give charity, I'm going to go to the shul and give charity, so you already had the thought. So you created the name of God in your mind. You made the creation. And when you did that, you already started to create an angel. And when you fulfill the mitzvah, you do it. You do the action. You do the deed. You go and do that. You fulfill the name of God. Like I showed you in charity, when you do charity, and for example, you give tzedakah. So you're fulfilling the name of God also with your body. Because when you thought of it, and the coin that you took in your hand, this is the Yud of the name of God. Then the Hey of the name of God is the 5 fingers in your hand. Because this is a Hey. The numerical value of Hey in Hebrew is 5. We have 5 fingers, I have the Hey of God. Then I need the Vav of God, the name of God, I have it. This is the Vav of God. Then another hand for the person that receives it, he opens his hand, he opens his 5 fingers. So this is another Hey. Together it's the full name of God. I fulfilled the full name of God. So by thinking about the mitzvah, I have the Yud Good Kuf of God. And then by doing the real action, I have the Vav Kuf of the name of God. And this is the fulfilling the mitzvah till the end. What did Paro want to do? He wanted to stop the name of God, not to have the bichud hashlim, not to fulfill the name of God, but to have a separation between the thought and the action. So he made the Jewish people work very hard and suffer. So they won't have any time to think about God. They won't have any time to learn and study anything. That's why the exile is called the exile of Egypt, which is true also for today, is called Galut HaDibur, the exile of the speech, and Galut HaDa'at, the exile of knowledge, because they couldn't study Torah. And Hashem created our mouth, Ruach Memalela, at Peter Gumunkulus, He created our mouth in order that we will speak the holy language and we will speak about the Torah. Not slandering each other, not speaking about the wrong things, but speak about the right things, which is the righteous Torah. That's why Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai Zchutot HaGenerel said that maybe a human being should have had 2 mouths. One, in order to say only holy things about the Torah, and the other one is to speak, the regular things that you need in life. But then he says that if we can barely control one mouth. Think about it if we had 2 mouths. Sorry. So let's continue. We can see. I would like to show you how yes.
Where's Hashem's name in that?
Yud over here. No, this is Hashem. I just wrote in Bekitzur. You see, this is Yud Kei Vav Kei. It's the name of God. Okay? I just wrote it like this. It starts with a Yud over here, then the Hey, then the Vav, and the other Hey. And his name, Bani, him, Paro, is in the middle, which means God is righteous and me, and my people are the wicked ones. Okay? So. For example, let me tell you. I will answer you in a few minutes, okay? It's a good question. I'm going to give the answer in a few minutes. Please pay attention. Let's continue. I would like to show you how this exile was really the Galut HaDat. You will see that in the word Egypt...
איך שהוא אמר את זה, Moshe immediately recognized the trikva?
בטח. הם דיברו, הרוחניות שלהם הייתה הרבה יותר גבוהה משלנו. אנחנו לא נמצאים באותה רוחניות. הם הבינו, אני אראה לכם עכשיו איך הם הבינו. I would like to show you something.
So it's not about you.
But we have to tell you what happened.
But later, let's do it later. Okay, let's go to the word Egypt and we'll continue.
Bright wants to go to the mikvah. And she said, 12 o'clock, what she was doing before.
Okay, come over here. Pay attention. The word Egypt is written like this. I would like to show you part of the Pardes. Look how beautiful it is. Mitzrayim in Hebrew. I'm happy that you are happy. It's good to be happy. Okay. This is the word Egypt in Hebrew, Mitzrayim. Look at the mem that starts. It's an open mem. Shh. Pay attention. Let's concentrate again. Look at the mem that closes. It's a closed mem. You know what we have in between? Yetzer. Spirit. And we mean over here the bad spirit. Look at the Yetzer over here. But listen, what is this mem? This is the mem of the action, maaseh. Okay? Why is it the mem of the action, the maaseh? Because this is an open mem. When we do the action, when we go and give it tzedakah, everybody sees us. Okay? It's in the open. It's everything is open. Everybody sees what we do. But then this mem, which is closed, this is the machshava, the thought. Just a minute. Because the machshava, exactly, you cannot see it. The machshava is the mem that is closed. You see, both of them starts with a mem. The machshava is the thought that you have over here. Nobody knows your thought. Only Hashem knows our thoughts. Look, this is part so you can see in the word Mitzrayim, you can already see livriyut. You can already see in the word Mitzrayim what the Egyptians wanted to do to the Jewish people. To separate the thought from the action so they could not worship their God. And by making them work hard labor and by working very hard and suffering, by the suffering, they separated the machshava from maaseh, the thought from the action. Look how beautiful it is in the word itself. And we're going to continue now to the next plague, which is arbe, grasshoppers. I would like to tell you, I forgot to tell you something about the barad. Over here about the hail, you'll see that it's written, Efroset kapi, Moshe says, I'm going to open my hands towards Hashem. HaKolot yachdelun, the thunders, the loud voices are going to stop. Ve'abarad lo yeod, and there won't be any hailstorm anymore. And the question is, why didn't the Mikra say that there's not going to be any loud sounds anymore? And you know why? Because the loud sounds were also b'ma'amad Har Sinai. When the children of Israel received the Torah on Har Sinai, there were loud noises. That's why over here it's written Yachdelun, which means, why Yachdelun? It was enough to be, this is a...
Девочки, ну, пожалуйста, тише. Ничего не слышно, что она
Мы ничего не говорим, ты там говорит.
It's written Yachdelun.
говорит, потише говорит.
Dear women, let's concentrate. It's written Yachdelun. It was enough to write Yachdelu. Why did Hashem will stop? And why did Hashem write the word in Hebrew Yachdelu? We'll add the nun over here. It was enough Yachdelu. וזה לדעתי, yes, Yachdelu, which means that it will stop. The noises will stop. It will cease. So why did Akadosh Baruch Hu, why did he add the nun? You know the numerical value of nun is 50. Okay, you know what it means? That after 50 days that they are going to go out of Egypt, they're going to go over the Yachzu Yam Suf, then they're going to go 50 days, and on the 50th day they're going to receive the Torah b'Ma'amad Har Sinai. And then they will hear the kolot, the sounds, they will hear them, because it will be on Ma'amad Har Sinai.
That's the sound.
זה חידוש. ותדעו לכם, it's beautiful. I can't give you everything, but I'm trying to give you here and there things. That's why it also takes time. And then we are going to start Parashat Bo, which is this Shabbat. We are now starting Parashat Bo, which is the portion of the week of this Shabbat. And it says like this, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe Bo el Paro. He says, God tells Moshe, come to Paro, which means I'm going to come with you to Paro. But he says Bo. And what does that mean? If we'll take the numerical value of Bo, Bet is 2, Aleph is 1, it equals 3. It means that in this parasha, in this portion of the week, in Parashat Bo, there are going to be another 3 plagues. Out of the 10, all these 3, grasshoppers, darkness, and the killing of the firstborn. It's a hint that he gives Moshe. He says, now there are 3 plagues. It seems like Paro wanted to do tshuva. He didn't do tshuva, true tshuva. But now I'm going to bring 3 plagues on Paro. You see over here, those Bo. And we continue, it says, he says, Ki ani ichbadeti et libo, I'm going to harden, I hardened his heart. Ve'et lev avadav, and the heart of his slaves. Leman shiti ototai ele bekirbo, because I want to give those plagues to show my strength to all the nations. And pay attention, shiti ototai ele. Ototai ele bekirbo. And you asked me a question. You asked me if he knew the name of God. One over here asked me the question. You remember at the beginning, Paro says to Moshe Rabbeinu, when Moshe Rabbeinu comes and tells him that God sent him and says, let my people go. And he says, who is this God? You remember that I told you the story, it was last lesson. He says, who is that God? I don't know that God. He didn't send me any present. He didn't send me any card. You remember we spoke about it? And we gave a mashal, a parable, to the chamor, the donkey, the lion, and the fox. So he says, Mi Hashem. Mi Hashem asher ashma bekola. I'll wipe over here. He says, Mi Hashem asher ashma bekolo. He wanted to give a hint, Paro, when he said, Mi Hashem asher ashma bekolo. He says, me. And God says, Ototai ele. He says, who is God? Me. He wanted to say, I know part of the name of your God. And part of the name is me, is Mem Yud. But God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, yes, he knows the 2 letters from my name, but he does not know the other 3 letters of my name. If you add Ele and me, you get the name Elokim. You see, this is me, and this is Ele. And I told you that over the head of the non-Jewish people, there's also the name of God. What name of God? The Elokim. And it is Mi Ele. Mi Ele, that's the name that they have on their heads. Above them. This is the name of God. So God tells him, we have 2 names of God. We have Elokim B'Yud Kei Vav Kei. We are the firstborns of God. So they have only the name of judgment. This is the name of judgment of Hashem. And it's Mi Ele. And the name above their head is Ele Mi. So he knew only 2 letters of the name. But God tells Moshe Rabbeinu, he doesn't know the 3 letters. 3 letters against the 3 that they're going to have now. The 3 plagues that they're going to have. Look how beautiful it is. Just a small touch. And now the next plague is Arbe. It says like this, that this Arbe was never seen in the whole world, because the Arbe was so much. There are 7 kinds of Arbe. It's grasshoppers. The plague of grasshoppers. There are 7 kinds of them. And it spread all over Egypt, only on the borders of Egypt. And they were standing one above the other. And they ate all of the plants in Egypt. And Arbe, usually the grasshoppers, do not go into the houses. But it went into the houses, into everywhere they were, the Egyptians. Everywhere they were, there was grasshoppers. I would like to tell you that the Egyptians were very happy with this plague. There was something that made them happy. Why? They thought of eating the grasshoppers. They didn't have any plants anymore, no fruits, no vegetables. They said, we're going to eat it. It's kosher. A grasshopper, הרבה כשר. הרבה יש סוגים של חרקים. הרבה עצמו כשר, yes. הרבה כשר. So what did they do? They put the הרבה, they took the grasshopper, they put the grasshopper in pots and put, they salted it, they pickled it, they prepared it. So God said, I'm giving you a punishment and you think how to gain from this punishment. So it says that Moshe Rabbeinu prayed to Hashem to stop the plague. And when he prayed to Hashem to stop it, God took wind and took all the grasshoppers, even from the pots, from every place that they hid the grasshoppers, so they can eat them later. God took them out. He said, you're not going to enjoy them. He took them from all the places. It's like, the plague of Arov, wild animals. Eventually, they thought that they're going to have fun with that, because they could, if the animals will die, if God killed the animals, that they will die, the wild animals, they can take their skins and use it for clothes, for shoes. They could use the skin. Then that's why God did not kill the wild animals and send them back to their nature, back to nature, because He didn't want them to gain anything from the plagues. Wow. So we can see that. I would like to tell you that Moshe Rabbeinu's prayed over there that the plague of the arbe, that the arbe will not go into Egypt anymore, and until this day. You will see that even if there's a plague of grasshoppers in Israel or the countries that surround Egypt, they do not go into the land of Egypt. And even if there are only a few of them that do go into the land of Egypt, they do not eat anything from there. Look what was the power of this tzaddik, Moshe Rabbeinu, Zchutat Hagen Aleinu, the power of his prayer. Because of that, until today, they do not have a problem with grasshoppers.
What did it say? The Moshe Rabbeinu. What did it say? To stop?
Yes.
That's it?
It's not that. It's written exactly the words that it said, but because of his prayer, wait, I'll tell you exactly. It says,
Because they were eating.
it's written. It's written like this. ויעל הרבה על כל ארץ מצרים וינח בכל גבול מצרים כבד מאוד לפניו לא היה כן הרבה כמוהו ואחריו לא יהיה. There wasn't a plague of grasshoppers before that, and after that there will never be. So Moshe Rabbeinu prayed to Hashem that there won't be any arbe anymore, any grasshoppers. And then look what Paro says. Paro says, please, he says, daven to Hashem, take this plague from me, and I'm going to send you out of Egypt. I'm going to let you daven to Hashem, make sacrifices to your God. So God takes all of the grasshoppers out, and it says like, ויחזק השם את לב פרעה ולא שילח את בני ישראל. Paro is stubborn more than he was before. He's not sending the children of Israel. Again, a false promise. And it says, ויאמר השם אל משה נטה ידך לשמיים ויהי חושך. Now the plague of darkness starts. And you have to understand, it wasn't a regular darkness. It says that 3 days the darkness, there was 6 days darkness. 3 days it wasn't a regular darkness, but it was darkness that they couldn't see anything. But the following 3 days there was a thick darkness, a darkness that you could touch, that had width. You can touch the darkness. They could not stand, they could not sit. A person that stood somewhere couldn't take even a step forward, because you could feel the darkness. They couldn't move for 3 days. They did not move from the place that they either stood or sat down. They couldn't do anything. And it says they were so afraid that they didn't even dare speak to each other. They couldn't see anything around them. Themselves they couldn't see. Part of their bodies they couldn't see. But the children of Israel did have light. And the moral of the children of Israel was highlighted in this plague. Why? Because everywhere the children of Israel went, they could see the treasures of the Egyptians. Because there was light with them. They saw all the treasures. Everywhere they hid the treasures, the money, jewelry, everything they had, they could see it. But they did not touch anything. They did not touch anything. And because of that, the Midrash says that the Egyptians had a highly value moral value towards them after this plague. Because they knew that they could see everything, because they saw the light that goes with a Jewish person.
Why didn't they take? Why?
Because they were very moral. This is Musar. No, God told them before. God told them over here, between the plague of Choshech, the plague of darkness, and the plague of the killing of the firstborn. Not now. He tells later, Moshe Rabbeinu, that you should tell them, please, take jewelry, dresses, take the treasures from the Egyptians. But now, when he tells them to take the treasures, when they came to the Egyptians, and the Egyptian said that he doesn't remember where he hid his treasures, the Jewish person told him, I remember where you hid your treasure. I saw it is when there was the plague of darkness. So he reminded the Egyptian where he hid his treasures. So you can see that God really truly loves his children. And then we come to the last plague. What we're going to do the last plague, B'ezrat Hashem, yes, it's too much for today. The last plague we're going to do next week with Parashat Beshalach. I would like to tell you, dear women, I would like to wish all of you, B'ezrat Hashem, גאולה פרטית עלינו ועל כל בית ישראל, וגאולה כללית עלינו ועל כל בית ישראל, אמן כן יהי רצון. May it be like Shvat, like the name Shvat of this month, the Hebrew name of this month, Shvat, שנתבשר בשורות טובות, that בעזרת Hashem, God will bring us good news. אמן כן יהי רצון. ולעולם ייפרד אדם מחברו מדבר הלכה יחיד ורבים הלכה כרבים. אמן כן יהי רצון. Thank you. It's the name.
על האדום, כפתור אדום. רק ללחוץ באמצע.